My name is Professor Jakob Edwinn. Welcome to another Edwinn's Lessons and welcome to my favorite day, exam day. Some of you out there might consider yourself bad test takers. I want you to know that's just not true because that doesn't exist. It's not real. It just means you give to pressure. It just means nobody can count on you at the 0 hour. That's all. The exam is an oral exam to be taken on your own time, at your home, at your leisure. It's 5 very simple questions. Who, what, when, where, and why. The reason it's these very simple questions is because a lot of you, pro wrestlers and fans alike, just don't seem to understand that you have to know those questions, especially about yourself. The easier parts are where and when. Where and when can people see you? The harder parts, why do they want to see you? What are you doing that they want to come and see you? I understand these questions about myself. And that's why I'm trying to help you help yourselves. That's what all of this is about. That's what all of this has been about. So take your time, ponder these questions, and understand that if you can't get them right, that's fine. That just means you're not as complete a pro wrestler as I am. And that's fine. We will see you in 2 weeks where we see who gets to pass the exam. As with all of my exams and tests and quizzes, it's pass or fail. Thank you.
Rubric family, how's every single one of you today? It's Sunday, May 17, 2020, and you know, like the weekend always brings new personalities to our shows, new wrestlers that are willing to come here and like they tell us about their lives, their experiences, their careers. So right now is exam day. I'm taking a test on a Sunday because I have with me from Richmond, Virginia, Professor Jakob Edwinn. How you doing, Professor?
Thank you, Juan. I'm doing great. I love your energy. I can't say there's a lot of podcasts I've seen and done, and their energy just can't be matched. That's when you asked me to be on. That was one of the first things I noticed, and I looked through your podcast. These guys? I love these guys' energy. That's something different. That's going to be a big thing.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm going to try to do my best to pass the test. Okay, I study. I've been doing a lot of research. I've been practicing. I know that like in the end you're going to be the better man. I know that because you always ask who, the why, and where, but like I'm going to do my best, Professor. So again, thank you so very much for being with me. You know, we're going to be talking about you, about your whole career. So take me through the beginning. Take me to like your first exposures to professional wrestling. How did you learn, what did you used to watch? How did the story begin?
So I watched wrestling. I was born in '92, and so I grew up with right when I started was the Attitude Era that everybody talks about. So of course my first 2 favorites were Stone Cold and The Rock. That was really unavoidable at that age. And I would watch with friends, and eventually when I was in high school, I was doing, high school was no challenge to me and almost bored me to the point where when someone finally introduced to me the idea that there was a wrestling school, that opened up everything. That was a big deal for me. So once that started, I started getting in shape because I realized you have to be in shape to do this. I started changing everything around, and everybody around me saw that. They saw how motivating wrestling was for me. And then when I started, I had a weird start at first, but then when things actually started to go well was I met up with a man who's, now we're not on such good terms in the ring, but Wild Man Robbie Page. I met him and Travis Dufour, and I met them. And Robbie took a bunch of us under his wing and trained us, but he didn't have a ring, so he knew a local gymnastics center, and we actually trained not in a ring but on mats on concrete. So it helped us a lot because now a bunch of us are very technically proficient in mat wrestling, and it couldn't have been a better way to start off. I don't think. I think a lot more people should start that way, where they can't use turnbuckles, the ropes. You know, it was kind of a throwback, and it's really helped me throughout my whole career. It's something I'll never be able to thank, you know, Robbie and Travis enough for. But now, unfortunately, with Robbie and I, we're more often at ends in the wrestling ring than not. So that's you know, that's the way it goes, right?
That's how you pay them, you know, beating them up. That's what you do. You pay them by beating them up. Well, they're like the student, like it's overpowering the teacher, right? That's how it goes. And you will say that you learn in the, you know, the tough way, in the one of the toughest ways. So like, I'm asking you, you know, like, well, you started, like, how long did it take you to say, hey, okay, I'm ready to have my first match?
Oh, so that took a few months, and we were told ahead of time what the match was going to be. It was going to be three of us that were in as trainees, and of course, we found out very fast that wrestling changes a lot. It changes on the fly, and there's so many times where you cannot plan for everything. So immediately the day of, the match got changed. So everything we had practiced for and trained for, you know, training to fight each other, it changed day of. It went from a triple threat match to one guy was put in another match, and two of us were left in that match. I think it was 2 or 3 months before that happened. That was a big day. The show was so small, though. It was an outside show, and I believe it was 12 people in attendance. I think you could count them. Our music was played incorrectly by the sound system. For some reason, it all played in slow motion. And the main event had the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, someone who I hold in very high respects for wrestling as long as he has. And it's not the style I would love, but it's worked for him for a very long time. So who am I to question that? I've since been able to wrestle Jimmy Valiant in Dyersburg, Tennessee. That's where a lot of my successes have taken place, in Dyersburg for Pro Wrestling Mid-South. I was able to finally face off against Jimmy Valiant years later, and so that was a nice thing to be able to wrestle the guy who main evented, you know, the first show I was on. That was a pretty big deal for me.
Oh, that's awesome! Like, it came full circle for you. So now you were mentioning about styles. What's the style what's your style, Professor? How do you teach in the ring?
The style is roughneck. It's hard nosed. You know, I was always able to learn by doing, and so if I'm a hands-on learner, that must mean I have to be a hands-on teacher. And no matter how many times I've tried to talk my way into things and talk my way out of things and just verbally teach people, they need a hands-on instruction. So I don't like to fly too much. I like to keep it grounded, much like myself. And I mean, joint manipulation and being able to do the sweet science of just taking people's legs out from under them before they even know it. It's just a hard-nosed thing, and it's adaptability. There's a lot of things I can do that people would never know that I can do them because I've never had to. More often than not, if you're facing a flyer, you don't want to fly with them. And if I'm facing another technician, then I'm going to change it up to be able to face that, because you know, sometimes you can fight fire with fire, but I find most often water works better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like you and you enjoy, like, Professor, you enjoy the submission maneuvers. That's what you enjoy. So like you're like a technician of the game. So pretty much when you based yourself on Bret Hart, like Kurt Angle, like Chris Benoit, those kind of guys that like kind of like they were, that was the main thing.
Yeah, Kurt Angle, I've gotten a lot of comparisons to, in appearance at least, because I wear a singlet and I'm bald, and that's it. That's the only comparisons people need to make that. And it's one of my least appreciated things, because yeah, I can be compared to one of the greatest to ever do it, but I'm being compared just because I'm bald. That's a trait. That's such a lowest common denominator trait that fans especially notice about me and pick on about me, and it's one of my least favorite things about fans, which is a long list.
Oh yeah, I can see the why, man. I mean, I will not compare you just based on that, because I've seen a lot of your matches, Professor, and your ability is absolutely amazing. I just think that, like, I guess people just see the 2 and 2 and they just put it together really fast without even seeing how you do it. But like, how did you feel when you won your first championship?
Let's see.
There,
I was super proud. I couldn't, man. Back then, the fans reacted to me a little better before I knew better and before they knew better. That was a long time ago. That was probably 2013 or 14. Actually, against Travis Dufour. It was in Big Bear Lake Campgrounds in West Virginia for Championship Pro Wrestling, a company I've had a pretty deep history with for my whole career. It came out of nowhere. It really did. It wasn't something. I was happy to be in the match at the time because when you first start and when you're that early on, you're a lot of times just kind of happy to be there. So, but I caught Travis off guard. I think he thought he had somebody just right where he wanted him, and I was faster. And I mean, throughout my whole career, I've been smarter, and it took me a long time to realize, oh, I am smarter than most of these wrestlers, most of these fans. And so at the time, I didn't know it, but I outsmarted them, and that's been the long game. You know, if you're smarter than your opponent, then you're immediately better.
You're going to win. That's pretty much what it is. It's like, it doesn't matter like technical ability. It doesn't matter in-ring skill. Like, if you're smarter, you're going to pull away to like make them, tab, or like you will beat them. So that's absolutely great. So now we talk about your style. We talk about the beginnings of it. So like, when did you decide to become the Professor, and why?
I didn't choose it. It chose me. You know, the Professor nickname was something that obviously for me is more than a nickname, but that started in locker rooms where I was able to present ideas and ideologies and concepts that other people just hadn't thought of before or just didn't know and would never be able to grasp. So the Professor thing started backstage. It takes people a while to find their groove and to find their name. I mean, a good example of that is Stone Cold Steve Austin was so many other things before that. He was Stunning Steve. He was the Ringmaster, and I mean other things before that. When you just start out, you have to find your voice. Some people are lucky enough to know it right off the bat, and they are almost characters to begin with. That's something wrestling presents a lot of, is just they take people off the streets that are just characters to begin with, and if you teach them enough, they can be a force to be reckoned with in the ring. Unfortunately for a lot of fans, though, my voice is not what they want to hear. Once I realized I could bring that level of intelligence and just concepts and all these different things to the ring and change my career, once I realized that, the sky was the limit. The Professor thing is not a gimmick. It is not a nickname. It is me. I am Professor Jakob Edwinn. Inside the ring, outside the ring, even on this podcast. How many podcasts do you see people try to be two completely different people? This is me. This is me inside and out.
That's why, for me, you're the Professor. So like, did it take a while for like people to react to it, or it was just right off the bat, like people like starting, like, because I'm pretty sure that you have a lot of people that love you, but probably a lot of people hate you as well.
No, it was immediate. All I wanted to do was bring a book to the ring. I just wanted to read on my way to the ring. That's all it takes. A bunch of people get really jealous and really annoyed that I would take the time to read on my way to the ring. Some people think it's disrespectful, and maybe it is, but there are some people that need music and maybe a good sweat to get ready and to get hyped up. I need to exercise my brain. That's my biggest muscle.
Absolutely awesome. And then, like, so you came out with the idea of your vignettes, because I've seen them. They're beautiful pieces of art. When you show, like, when you give us your lesson, those lessons, like, you came out with those ideas, or it was people that help you in the locker room and keep developing, like, your career as the Professor.
So with the ideas in the locker room, I can't count how many times people have said to me, "Oh, you should do this." I've either done it before or I've thought about it, and there's already plans for it. There have been very few times, save being polite. I'll be polite and tell them, "Oh, that's a good idea," and it's a good idea because I have already thought of it and done it and tried it, or already have plans to try it, and I'm just waiting on some sort of equipment or something in the mail. There are very few ideas that I haven't thought of myself. So some people might want to try and take credit, and that's fine. Whatever they need to take credit for to stand on the shoulders of giants. But I've come up with my ideas. I've come up with my own lessons, my own lesson plans. I see a lot of lazier teachers stick with just online courses, and they don't get creative. And that's something that's not attributed to me enough, is my creativity. I'm pretty creative when it comes to a lesson. There's things that you wouldn't have expected. I mean, a 5-question exam is a pretty good recent example. People wouldn't have thought of that. They would think I'd have wrestling trivia quizzes or rule quizzes or something like that. And it's who, what, where, when, and why. That's all you should have to answer to become a professional wrestler.
Yeah, man, and that's absolutely, like, I love that vignette, because it always says at the end, of course, you're the better man. You're gonna beat him. And see, I enjoy that. So tell me, like, about you. We talk about style, your career, how you define yourself. When did you decide to take these matches to the next level? Because I've seen that, like, you enjoy carnage. So you've had really, like, and you told me it needs to end like a feud in such a legit way, and you've done it, because I've seen pictures like the brutality is right there. How, like, a professor, like, prepares for those kind of matches?
The same way I prepare for every other match. It's studying, first of all. You got it, because most of these matches have been done. You're probably referring to a couple of different things. One would be a kendo stick match I had in Ripley, Tennessee, a schoolyard brawl, they called it, and that was in West Newton, Pennsylvania, for RWA.
Thank you for the people in Pennsylvania right there. Hi.
Yeah. So you have to study for these things, obviously. A lot of people take that for granted. They have things like YouTube and the WWE network and so many other networks that like the NWA and all of that they have an unlimited library, and they don't even browse it. And that's absurd to me. And that's where I have a leg up on most people. So the reason I've been in enough of these matches, ladder matches and no DQ and things like that, is because, honestly, I bring a lot of emotion out of people. I might seem pretty calm and pretty level here, and when times are, even keeled and everybody's being respectable. But I bring a lot out of people, things that they didn't know they had. So opponents of mine that have been driven to get bloody and to get severe and angry, people like Jason Raditz, people like Golden Boy Greg Anthony, people like Coco Anderson. These guys, they didn't know they had that other level. So I brought it out of them, and it doesn't bode well for them or me. Like, you can't walk out of those matches unscathed. You just can't. So you can prepare to a point, but that's where my adaptability comes in. That's why I don't really stick to just one style. You want to be able to do all of it. So when the time comes and when the crowd is begging for it, yeah, I'll get a little hardcore. I'll get a little blood. I'll be thrown onto a pile of chairs and thumbtacks just to try and solve the issue. The personal issues have gotten that heated that it called for that. Of course, I'd rather play a game of chess or something to settle the issues, something more civilized. But like I said, these wrestlers, they need hands-on learning. They need corporal punishment.
And see, like, and I know that, like, if they need it, you will deliver to them. And see, that's a great thing that you just mentioned, was that, like, you can bring the best out of, like, different guys, or, like, you can bring something that they didn't even know that they had. So that's extremely great, and it gives you, like, a lot of room for you to have like so many different feuds and add like stipulations to every single one of them. So far in your career, Professor, what's like the feud that you enjoy the most?
I'll put it this way. Golden Boy Greg Anthony. He's out of Dyersburg, Tennessee. He and I have, I don't think we've had the most matches I've had with one person, but that we're also not done. That match count climbs every year. And I'll say this, because I learn in the ring too, and I study. If I've learned from any one person the most, it would probably be him. And every time that I learn from him, I know him a little better, and I'm just that much more better equipped to take him on the next time. And I don't feel bad saying that. You know, that's a guy I've been at ends with for years now, it feels like. Yeah, Pro Wrestling Mid-South has seen us go to war, and it's not over. It never really seems to be. We just have different ideas. We have different ways of looking at life. I can't count the amount of disagreements we've had, and his circle doesn't run with my circle, and we're just at ends.
And at some point, the paths are going to cross again, and there you go. Boom. It's going to be explosive, and you guys are going to keep adding the fuel, you know, and it's going to be great. And I enjoy that because, see, to me, those feuds are the ones that, like, define the career of somebody. You know, that you have, like, some, like, chemistry, you understand each other, and you know that, like, it's going to be a great match for you guys, and also it's going to be for the crowd in attendance. So that's what I think is more meaningful when it comes to rivalries like that. So, Professor, take me to your current take on the product. Do you watch WWE? Do you watch AEW? What is this in your eyes? What's the current status of wrestling right now?
I honestly have a hard time with that. There's a lot of things I see on TV that I don't agree with. It's not how I would want things to go. So I catch bits and pieces of everything because you want to stay. A lot of people get burnt out and they just fall out, but I'd rather stay on top of it. I can't help myself. I have to study. So I have to know what the current product is. But I gotta say there's stuff I do like. I mean, just on Smackdown last week, there was a great match between Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak. And I don't know when this will air, but the most recent stuff is that Gulak, his contract expired, and so
yes, it was released yesterday.
It could be seen as like a swan song for him. Couldn't have been a better opponent, but I mean, even those guys, they are doing some lazier stuff. And you know, I've heard the critiques. Who am I to call out Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak? Well, I mean, I just
you're a professor though.
I haven't crossed their paths yet. It's just that simple. You know, it's just that simple. There's stuff I disagree with, stuff I wouldn't do, and not how I want to go about the wrestling business. So I watch bits and pieces, and AEW is they're 50-50 at best. And but man, there's a lot. I like to focus more on positives. There's stuff I love about AEW because Jake the Snake, being named Jacob, I got that comparison often throughout my life, not just my wrestling career, but my life. I've been called Jake the Snake, and so that's someone I hold close to as far as one of my wrestling inspirations. And I mean, how different a guy, you know, in a field of yellers and screamers, he was always the guy who talked to you and made you listen. And I mean, I can't say anything about Jake that hasn't been said a million times over, so I won't harp on that. But guys like Jake the Snake and guys like Cody Rhodes, I've met Cody Rhodes once or twice, and you know, we've never had cross words, but it's you can tell there's something he holds highly about the wrestling business. It's in his blood, you know. It can't be helped. And I mean, Cody's had a great career. He's had a lot of really storybook matches almost. And when you tune in and watch AEW, he's a highlight anytime he's on the screen. Same can be said for Daniel Bryan on WWE, and NWA Power. I'll tune into to watch a guy I've been on shows with and have yet to cross paths with, Tim Storm. You know, someone that I have a lot of respect for, and I have a lot of respect for circles he's run in, but someone I'd like to take to task and see how we would match up. That's something that it's almost happened a couple of times. It's almost worth saying he might be avoiding it, but I won't go out and say that. So hopefully that doesn't make any headlines or anything. But
oh no, it will not. No, you know, with Raw Break, that is not about creating those. But like, if we have to, maybe no, it will not happen. But so, like you said, like you have. Do you have any like a particular promotion that you follow to, or you just catch every single piece of like whatever is going on in the wrestling landscape?
I won't say I have a favorite because it just wouldn't be true. I catch what I can, I watch what I can, and I watch everything to stay sharp. You know, same. I also watch MLW, and I will say I probably don't watch any Impact. There's just nothing for me to watch there. I study wrestling.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. And like, so tell me now, you talk about all these guys. Have you gotten any piece of advice from any one of them? You know, that you met, for example, like Tim Storm. Like, what did they say when they talked to you?
I will say this: I attended a seminar for Arn Anderson a few years ago, and it was before I started the putting the professor actually in front of the curtain. But this was someone asked him out of the class in the seminar who has it, who can move on to the next level, and he pointed out 3 people, and I was one of them. I also got to wrestle around with him some. He was teaching us just a simple sequence that you see oftentimes, and how you can change it to really throw the opponent off. You know, it was a drill, something that you do in early school, and then he changed it just slightly. It's like they'll never see that coming. They'll expect the same thing over and over, but this is something completely different. Because he points out everybody tries to reinvent the wheel, and they try to add, you know, kick flips and springboards and those kinds of things. And it's like all it takes is just a slight alteration. That's all it takes. And suddenly the game is just flipped on its head. You know, you didn't reinvent the wheel, you just turned it a little bit.
Oh yeah, and you know what? Like that's really that's a big truth, because a lot of people we're just used to, like, when we see wrestling for so many years, we know how like the sequences are gonna go, and then like you said, somebody will do just like a little tweak, it will be so much different.
Yeah, if you can throw off the wrestlers, you can definitely throw off the fans. That is right behind it.
And you know what? That's the biggest thing, though. That's what we want. You know, that every time that I watch, I want to see something different. I want to see because the love that I have for it is just I want to keep it falling in love more. It's like any relationship. If it is, you know, the same thing every single time, it gets monotone. It just gets, you know, routine. And that's why I think like that's awesome. I really appreciate that from you. So now, tell me a little bit about my dream match. What will be your dream opponent? And you can pick, you know, in all the wrestling landscape. What will be like the guy that you think that you and him can match up and make the best out of that rivalry, that feud?
When I was younger, obviously I wanted to face off with The Undertaker. That seems to be behind him more than it is in front of him. I don't think we'll cross paths, but for one, I know I could make money with anybody. As far as a dream opponent, that's not something I've thought about in a long time. That's tough. I think Matt Stryker and I should absolutely cross paths.
Awesome, Matt Stryker, yeah.
Yeah, that really just makes a lot of sense. That's something that should happen. I mean, you obviously want to face against someone at the top of the mountain. You know, and this guy likes to play a lot of mind games. So who better to play them against? But so the Fiend would be a great dream opponent. That would be a match that people should and will pay to see. Someone that I think I'd like to see if I could keep up with, because his athleticism is unmatched, would be Dolph Ziggler.
Awesome. Yeah.
Another person that I think he and I would get along a little too well to come at ends, but maybe someday down the line, MJF and I could cross paths, and we'll see how that goes.
I can see myself. I can see both of you having that great of a feud, because like you two, very good on promo. So, you know, for me, you know, sometimes even the match doesn't need to be that awesome, but the promo work, the stuff that is said, fuels the thing for me. You know, like sometimes like even like the promo is so much better than what the match turns out to be. But like I see both of you, goal.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows? Maybe we'll end up on the same side of the coin instead, and face up against some other tag team. But and I will throw Tim Storm in there. I'd like to wrestle Tim Storm. I don't know that you can classify it as a dream match, but he's more than on my radar.
Okay, well, there you go. That's awesome. So now you just touch up a little bit upon like what do you like, Professor? Do you like more like singles matches? Do you like to be on a tag? Do you like triple threats, fatal four ways? What do you enjoy the most?
I've been in quite a few different tag teams in my career. Global Domination with the Russian Wrecking Ball, Meklikov. He's out of Arkansas. I consider him a good friend. Currently, I'm in a tag team called The Faculty with my uncle, Coach Michael Osborne. And I have to say, it's really hard to pick. But I seem to have a lot more fun in tag team matches. There's a dynamic there where it's an undeniable chemistry, and when tag team matches go just according to plan, and that's not my opponent's plan but my plan, boy does it feel right. Everything really feels right. In tag team matches, here's a point that was brought up to me when I started, and that I'd like to reflect, is tag team matches is something you cannot see anywhere else. You can see teams go up against each other in basketball and football, but it's not quite the same as seeing, like, if you saw a tag team match in MMA, that would blow people's minds. So a tag team match, I think, makes the most sense for pro wrestling. It's so pro wrestling unique, and I think more unique than people give it credit for. So I have a lot of respect and admiration for tag team wrestling.
Oh yeah, I feel that like see tag when it's a legit tag, and I say a legit, for example, when you see even your name, the faculty, two teachers together, it makes all the sense in the world. I'm picture you two guys are gonna be in sync. It's like the Road Warriors. It's like, for me, like those guys that they clearly live the tag. It's not like sometimes WWE will put 2 and 2, like these two guys, they never been on a tag, and yeah, let's put the theme songs, like the 5 seconds is your theme song, for 5 seconds is my theme song. No, it's just the whole thing. For me, how you present it to me from the moment they walked out to the moment of the match and everything. So that tag team is something that I enjoy when it's done properly, when it's done right. Oh yeah, tag team is great. And a lot of wrestlers like you, Professor, they say that they enjoy tag teams even more than singles matches.
It's not. Some people don't want to share the glory, and if you're just in this for glory, then you're doing it wrong. Now, some people just don't want to share the money. Now, if you're doing this for money, then that's a different story. But I don't mind, because tag team matches they have every potential to make more money than singles matches. Every potential.
Yeah, and absolutely. So tell me now about, have you had the chance to wrestle overseas yet? Have you had those opportunities, or you, for example, you just do a state to state? What have you done any of that yet on those opportunities?
No, not yet. A lot of things in the works, but nothing got set in stone. This year was going to be a year that I was going to look into that further and actually get pen to paper and get it all worked out. But obviously, with certain situations, it can't really occur. So I'm looking at next year or soon. As soon as travel becomes a little more lenient. Canada, I have my sights on. There's a lot of respectful. There's a lot of really good wrestling and wrestling history that came out of Canada, and is still there. So that's something I'd like to. I mean, I'm the professor. I have to go where the history is. So yes, of course, I want to go to the historical places in Canada and try my trade there.
Talking about the history, for example, Mexico will be a target for you. Lucha Libre style.
Of course, that's something that I would so clash with that sometimes you've heard the phrase "styles make fights." Mexico would just be. I mean, I'm sure they would try to eat me alive, but as long as I stay a step ahead of them, I would love to go to Mexico.
Oh, also, and what about Japan? Japan will be also big for huge, because you're stiff. You have a stiff style, so you will match pretty well.
When I first started, I set a goal 2 years in to be in Japan, and now, unless I'm 6'5" and 300 pounds, or something else that just wasn't going to happen for me. So I had we'll say naive goals, unrealistic goals at first, but Japan is absolutely a goal. It should be a goal for anybody. And sometimes it comes down to price. So, I mean, money talks. Well, I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to line up with quite a few of the competitors out there.
I know it will happen for you. I just know it will happen because like the quality of you're just a great wrestler, so you just know it will happen for you. I can see, and I really hope that when you do that, you come back to the show and you say, hey, it was a great experience. So please. And so what have you had injury? What has it been, and have you had an injury that has sidelined you for a long time? And also, what do you do to remain healthy?
So I've never said this publicly, but in October of last year, I actually tore my MCL. I was in a surfboard move, and it popped in the middle of the match. I finished the match and I got it checked out and confirmed it was a torn MCL. So for probably the first 2 months, at least, I got a brace, like an immobilizer brace. I would wear it all the way to the match. I would take it off for the match. I would wrestle, and then after the match, I would immediately put it back on. I wrestled for several months. I didn't miss any shows. The next weekend, I was in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach for a show called The Show, against Patrick Scott, a fairly large name in the Carolinas right now, someone who's really trying to climb the ranks, and someone who's been on NXT and NXT, and someone who's made something of a name for himself. And I'm not taking anything away from any competitor, but and I'm still going to physical therapy for my knee now, but it's been hard because you have to be smarter than usual and
more protective of yourself. You would. Exactly,
and I've done it, and maybe I've lost some matches because of it, but I'm not one to make excuses. It is what it is, and that's what wrestling is about. You get hurt. Everybody wrestles hurt. Nobody. If you're injured, that's one thing, but everybody wrestles hurt. No one wrestles at 100%. So I was just another one of those. So yeah, I've been hurt, and that's probably been the biggest thing. I sprained an ankle early on, and several concussions, plenty of other times, but stuff that you treat, you just be smart about, and you don't ignore it. You acknowledge it, and you recover from week to week, and you just play it smart. And I can't reiterate that enough. I mean, who better to say it? You have to play it smart.
Professor. Yeah, and I see that's what I wanted to go along those lines. Like you said, tell me a little bit about what promotion would you like to work for? What's the goal? What's the next goal? Where do you see where the professor is going to teach next? Where do you see yourself?
That's a tough question to answer, because I don't know that I fit in anymore with quite a few of people, but I mean, I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere that will take me as I am and doesn't try to change me and doesn't try to make me something I'm not. And once everybody kind of catches up to the idea of how good I am, then I can go anywhere. I fit anywhere. I make anybody money. I am good. I am good, and I am smart, and I can go toe to toe with the best. That's
exactly. And I was gonna reiterate that talks about the kind of professional you are, because see, it doesn't matter how hurt you were, you always fulfill your commitments. So that is something that for a lot of people that don't have that same amount of passion and the same amount of professionalism. That talks a lot about you as, of course, an educator. So that's something that I really want to reiterate. That's awesome, and that's what professional wrestling needs. Professionals like you that are going to keep making the business grow. That's all I got to say. And what will be, the dream event that you want to, main event? And if you say WrestleMania, yeah, but is that something that you've seen for you? That will be your dream that will be like the time that you say I fulfill everything I wanted to fulfill. If you're like a part of a WrestleMania.
No, because if I went to WrestleMania, I would just want to do another one. It never ends. This is a moving goal. I was taught as at a fairly young age. If you pick a destination, then eventually the trip stops. If you pick a direction, you can always keep going north. So I'm always going north.
That's an answer of only a teacher could do. So, like, teacher, tell me your best memory in your career so far, and then tell me about a memory that you kind of like. Now I want to say worse, but like, hey, a memory that you don't like to remember.
I tell you what. I've mentioned Ripley, Tennessee, and Dyersburg, Tennessee, and Pro Wrestling Mid-South. There's one very key moment. I had to leave. I was wrestling there. They run every week, every Friday and every Saturday. And I had to leave for a time, for a few months, and I was able to surprise everybody. And actually, I was able to surprise Golden Boy Greg Anthony. I came from the front entrance with a mask on, and nobody knew I was there. Nobody in the locker room knew I was there. Nobody knew, and that made an impact when I took that mask off and revealed who it was. That might be the loudest I've ever heard a crowd. It goes to show you when things are done right and not everybody spills the beans. You know, it pays to keep a secret. As far as worst, I think I already mentioned it once before. I was thrown from the top turnbuckle through a pile of chairs that were covered in thumbtacks. That's an image a lot of people are going to remember, me flying through the air. I'm sure they were very happy to see it. Ruthless Jason Raditz, he was the one that threw me through the air. If he did it, he might as well make his name off of it. But yeah, that would probably be one of my bigger regrets is trying to take him on in that match. Doesn't mean I would back down from any challenge from him, but Jason Raditz is every bit of ruthless.
And I believe it. Like, I saw pieces of the match, absolutely great. Let's see, brutal, and that's how I love him. You know, it needs to be a little bit of juice. If it's not juice, if it's not brutality, it wouldn't be professional wrestling for me. So now let's take me to the professor, like, outside of the ring.
Obviously, I'm a big reader, and I love to write as well. And that's usually it. If I'm not studying wrestling, I'm reading something else, or I'm reading about wrestling, or I'm writing in my notebooks and coming up with new plans. Those are the easiest answers. Those are the quickest answers. I don't get much into television, but yeah, that's probably the easiest answers. It gets more interesting once you get into the wrestling ring. I mean, sometimes I'll tutor on the side as well, and that's just for fun. That's just to stay sharp.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, absolutely. And see, for example, let's say when your career, like in so many years to come, like you do decide to like hang up the boots, like would you like to like just remain as a teacher, meaning like preparing the new generations? Is that something that you will have considered yet?
No, I always want to push myself. I would just get more degrees and go back to school and go back to being a student. And that never lasts long. I'm a quick learner. It's been a gift and a curse, but yeah, I would say I would just keep going and keep trying to get smarter. If the only reason I would stop wrestling is if either my mind or my body go. So if the mind goes, then it all goes. But if the body goes, then the mind can keep working.
That's true. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So, Professor, this is the time that I want to give this to you for like, you can tell me a question that I didn't ask you yet. You can actually be like, hey, I want to talk about this. A question that I didn't ask.
I mean, a lot of times people ask about like friends in wrestling and traveling together. And, if that's something I could speak on, people call it doing the drives sometimes or traveling the distance. And I just call it going to work. You're just going to work. You don't have to make a big deal about traveling all the way to Canada when you're being paid to go there. You're not doing anything extra. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's what's supposed. People want trophies for everything. They want everything to be acknowledged. They want everything to be given to them. But it's just as simple as you're supposed to do that. That's the work you're supposed to do. You're expected to do. Now, So, if you want extra credit for that, you're just not going to get it. That's just a C. That's just the standard. That's exactly
it's a C minus. You're even below, below the expectation. It's true though. It's true because like you're already being paid to do something, and that's the perks of doing something. Nothing is gonna come easy and handed to you. At least that's not how the world works. So now, Professor, I'm gonna give you the room. This time is all yours for you to plug in all the social media, plug in every single thing that you wanna like, so where people can follow you, where they can see you, and everything. So the floor is absolutely yours.
Right now, the most busy I am is you can find my Edwinn's lessons on RWA on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook on Jakob Edwinn, at Jakob Edwinn. You can go on my ProWrestlingTeesStore.com / Jakob Edwinn, and Instagram at Jakob Edwinn on everything. That's JAKOBEDWINN. A lot of people miss that, but if you look up any version of it, you should be able to find my page. I go a little bit everywhere, but a couple of places that I'm probably the most steady at: Pro Wrestling Mid-South in Ripley, Tennessee, and Dyersburg, Tennessee; RWA in West Newton, Pennsylvania; Championship Pro Wrestling in West Virginia; WrestleForce in South Carolina, and a few other places I'm sure I'm forgetting. I don't mean to forget them, but if you follow my Facebook and Instagram pages, you'll be able to see exactly where I'm going week to week. But always go to the Facebook to find the most recent Edwinn's lessons or any other past lessons I have. They're all on there.
Everybody can catch up with those, correct? So, Professor, tell me just, do you have any upcoming dates? We know the situation of the world, but like anything that you would like to plug in, anything that's going to happen maybe July or August, anything that like we know that like at least for now there's a room for it to happen?
Right now, nothing set in stone. Those places I listed. Also, before I forget, CW Championship Wrestling of Arkansas, out in Arkansas. I wrestle for them frequently. Any show they have, I like to be on. You can catch me at all those places. Once those places start up, I'll be there first, and then everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely awesome. So, Professor, I want to thank you so very much for like your time. I think we covered everything. It was absolutely a great lesson. I hope I passed. I hope I did well. If I need extra credit, like you let me know. We can talk about this after the end.
I'll post the grades later.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I need to check it out on Blackboard. I think that's where like the notes are always posted. So, Professor, thank you so very much, and thank you so very much, family, for watching every single one of our videos. Don't forget to check us out on the social media world. Like the Professor social media is going to be always listed, and then it will be ours. So don't forget to do that. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you guys pretty soon. We have Monday Night Raw coming tomorrow. So there, I'll catch you all then. And in the name of my Professor and me, I want to say, adios.